Good afternoon, June. And
Hello to you too. What
yes.
can we do?
Well, we want to talk about where you are as far as the whole racial picture is in this church and in this community, knowing that you really started your work. Your main focus, I know, has been peace.
Yes.
And you have done so much in that area. And as they say in the movement, no justice, no peace.
Yes.
So therefore you
Yes.
also were involved with the justice part of it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I have watched you, I've known you ever since I've been in this church because
Yeah.
I began working with peace too
Yeah.
before anything else.
Uh-huh.
And the work at Wilf, I used to go there.
Yes.
And you were very close to that.
I was president of the local chapter.
You're president of the
I was, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I know plenty of people at Wilf. As you know, I had some friends there.
Yes.
And, yeah, so it's been, and you've also worked very closely with me with the United Nations.
Yes.
And so that's been the thing we did together.
I'm very supportive of the United Nations.
Right. And it's been beautiful to be able to work with you on that.
I know United Nations has been one of your main interests, and I support that.
You certainly have, and it's been wonderful that you did.
Yeah.
But we're talking today about just where we are in this church, with how we've evolved as a welcoming church and as a place where black people and all people could come and feel that they were a part of it. And that the Unitarians have had a slightly checkered history around how welcoming they were, even though the church tenets, the principles talk about being concerned about all peoples.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you came to this church, how many years ago was that, June?
I joined the church in 1985, but I raised myself at the other Unitarian church, Restoration.
Okay, when did you start? When did you become a Unitarian?
I always was.
Oh, your parents were?
No, my mother didn't, and my parents didn't join a church because my father traveled he was an engineer. He was traveled to design systems for various nations, so he traveled. My mother was a watercolor, so she stayed home and sold and made money from her museum quality paintings.
Okay.
So my mother said, you have to join a church, so I went to the closest one, which was Unitarian Restoration.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you were reared in this area?
yes,
In
but when I was a teenager, I thought maybe there are other better ones. Mm-hmm. So I went around to other churches, and they weren't better for me. Mm-hmm. So I came back to the Unitarians. So I've always been very supportive, trying to be active with Unitarians.
Okay. So, and your interest was peace. How did you get involved in the peace movement?
I was always for nonviolence.
Mm-hmm.
On every level.
So who was the first person that, or first celebrity in that area for you? Who was the person that you recognized as being talking about?
I think all my neighbors on the block, all my neighbors were focused on peace, and this was a long time ago, they all had their doors open and everybody was invited to come in and eat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this was in Mount Airy? Where
yes,
in Mount Airy?
this was on Milton Street, 6814 Milton Street.
Okay. Where is that near?
That's in Mount Airy.
I know, but where? What's the cross street?
It's right near the Restoration Unitarian Church.
Okay, so
It's
we'd
not
say
too-
Stanton Avenue.
Yes, not too far from Stanton Avenue.
Okay, so, was it during the time of the Kennedy administration or before that when you began to think about, or was it Eleanor Roosevelt? Who was the person who sort of exemplified peace for you?
Eleanor Roosevelt is one of my favorite people.
So that you, did you see, we're talking about, this is the 40s, that was early in your life. But do you remember any of the things that she was doing around that and any of the things she did?
She was supporting her husband who had problems standing up, so they worked together.
Well, she also did a lot about race relations in her work.
Oh,
Because, for instance, Marian Anderson was not able to sing at the Constitution
oh
Hall.
yes,
Do you remember
yes,
that?
yes,
Is
yes,
that- do you remember that incident in your
yes,
life?
yes. Yeah,
Well, that was a significant act
yeah,
for her to do.
Yeah.
You know, to talk about race relations and
Yeah.
about the fact that black people should have the right because they were citizens.
yeah,
And that Marian Anderson,
Yeah.
she provided for Marian
Yeah.
Anderson to sing.
yeah.
Which was very important. A big step in race relations. Was there any reaction about that at the church that you remember?
No,
No? Do you remember any incidents at the church where black people were brought in or they talked about race relations at all?
no. It just seemed like it was assumed, or yeah, yeah, yeah.
It seems like it was assumed that black
Yeah.
people were welcome here.
Yeah,
And do you remember associating with many black people here yourself?
Well, in my neighborhood, the only time I remember that was that a single black mother moved in with a young child, and she forbid her child to talk to any white people. So I started out with white racism.
Oh, I see. So how did you manage that situation?
Well, I just tried to be as friendly as I could with her child, with her daughter, and welcoming her, and hoped that she would change her mind.
You didn't understand why that mother felt that way? Did your mother?
No, I
They didn't
didn't.
explain that to you?
No,
But they just thought that she was a hostile woman, is that?
Yeah, yeah.
But you didn't feel that she had reasons why she didn't want her little child to associate with white
Well, she had reasons, but they weren't clear.
And your parents didn't explain that?
No.
What other black people did you encounter in your school? Where did you go to school here in Marietta?
I went to the Houston School.
Where's that?
That's on Allen's Lane, right near Stanton Avenue.
Was that a private school or public school?
Public school.
Were there many black people there?
Yes.
And how did you associate with them? What was your interaction?
We just felt that we were all equal, and I wanted to prove the equality by how many people spoke with me and were willing to speak with me. So with whom could I begin to establish friendship, friends? I wanted to be friends because my main focus was people and how we got along.
So that's, you sort of use that as the way to enter your
People
career.
first, yeah.
Yes. You were a psychologist, weren't you? Or
Psychotherapist.
psychotherapist.
Yeah.
So you use that as...
Yeah. I was the first art therapist in Philadelphia.
Oh, really?
I worked in 2 mental institutions.
And you, so that you taught all kinds of people?
Yes. Yeah.
What did you do about your co-workers whose attitudes might have been different from yours about race relations in your work? Because being a psychotherapist required a real empathy with your clients. And a lot of them were black, I suppose, right?
You mean in the mental institutions where I
Yeah.
worked? No, they were always all white.
Oh, really?
except for one time, there were all white women.
Is that so? Why
Yeah.
is that?
I don't know why. It was because that's where they lived. They were probably talking about involving people who lived there. But at one day, it was different. They were all black men. And so I asked, why was this? Mm-hmm. Well, they had come from, they were political prisoners. They had come from the Black Panthers.
Really?
So I said, let's set our art. They didn't know how to deal with anybody. They were very uncooperative. So I said, let's set aside our artwork and decide how we can get you to explain your motivations. And so I helped them to know how to deal with people in charge. And the next day, they were released. They were political prisoners.
Oh. So that was interesting that you did that, because you see that they were probably very hostile.
Yeah.
And
well, I knew who the Black Panthers were, and they didn't think I did, so they trusted me because I wasn't. I understood exactly who they were.
Okay. Well, you really had to be in what you do.
Yeah.
So did you were you able to understand why there were only white mental patients in your that you were taking care of, that there were no blacks there? Did you realize that that was a segregated institution?
No, it wasn't a segregated institution. Mostly the people in the area were white. It was just a neighborhood. There weren't any black people living in this at that time.
It was a segregated neighborhood then?
Well...
You didn't understand that the neighborhood was segregated?
No, I didn't. It wasn't segregated. I just think it was just a coincidence that at that time.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you that it was not a coincidence. Okay, that it was a segregated neighborhood. That was redlined. You know, the black people just didn't live beyond a certain border. And so that's why. And then this hospital. Where was this that you were working?
I worked with the Northwestern Mental Health Center and Horsham Clinic.
Horsham in the suburbs?
Yeah.
Very segregated neighborhood. You definitely couldn't live in Horsham if you were black. Well, they did have a little section. They always had a little section where blacks could live. That was where the people were servants. But Horsham was a very segregated neighborhood. So that's why there were no white, there were no mixed. It wasn't a mixed place.
Yeah.
But you didn't understand that.
No, I didn't. No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So.
Yeah.
You were a grown person then. When you went to school, didn't you understand for instance, in college and high school, or didn't you feel there was any racial tension there or anything like that?
I went to Houston School. I didn't think there was. And then I went to a small school just for women that only existed there for a short time. So.
And when you went to college, what about that? Where did you go?
Well, I wanted to go out of Philadelphia because I didn't want to stay here all my life. So I went to Bradford, which was a part of NIM. I mean, part of MIT. Yeah.
In Massachusetts.
Yes, Massachusetts. Excuse me. Yeah.
But that was integrated, wasn't it? I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you had black and white friends?
Yeah.
Okay. So that you just you more or less feel that you just grew up not having any sense of why black people were excluded or not present.
Well, the only incident I can think of is I belonged to a large group, and we were going to Chicago, and that meant we had to drive a whole day, and we had to stop for lunch. And the driver was a friend of mine. He was a very dark black man, and of course I'm a white woman, so we had to stop for lunch. And when we walked in for lunch, people were absolutely horrified. They thought we were an interracial couple. So I explained
what year was that, do you know?
This was about 1950s.
Okay.
So I explained to the person at the front desk that we're not an interracial couple. We're on the last a group of that are traveling, and we need to have lunch here, and we're just traveling together. And so she explained that to the people in and they welcomed us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, where was that?
This was between here and Michigan, so it's halfway in between.
Right, so like Ohio or Illinois.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Probably
sounds
in
like
Ohio.
the 1950s.
Yeah.
That sounds like 1950s
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they were real squeamish about
Yeah.
an interracial couple
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so.
And he was from a family of doctors.
So you just grew up with the attitude that all people were created equal, and you didn't have any feelings that you would drive from here
Yeah.
to,
Yeah. Yeah.
on a tour on a mission
Yeah.
with a black man
Yeah.
driving.
Yeah.
And you were a college student at that time.
Yeah.
So you brought that attitude when you came to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Came back to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So it seems like you've always had that attitude.
Yeah.
When I used to see you.
Well, I guess it was because my mother got pneumonia and was supposed to die.
Oh.
My father could not take care of her because he traveled the world as an electrical engineer designing electrical systems. And so for a whole year, this was before they had the medicines for cure, my mother was sick for a whole year. And my father hired a black woman to take care of me and to help my mother. And I got along with her much better than I did with my real mother. So I got a black mother and a white
And
mother.
how old were you then?
I was probably about first grade, something like that.
Okay, like 6
Yeah.
or 7.
Yeah,
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's probably where you got your racial attitude
Yeah.
established.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you came to the church restoration, at
Yeah.
that time there were very few black people there. In
Yeah,
fact, I think I
uh-huh.
know one woman who was going
yeah,
there in
yeah,
the 50s.
yeah, uh-huh.
And how did you feel about that church? Did you feel that there should be, did you wonder at all why there were few black people there?
I just thought there were people who lived in the neighborhood, and I didn't wonder about it any more than that. They're just accepting Unitarians who lived in the neighborhood. Yeah.
So when you worked with Wolf, you know,
Uh-huh.
there were a few black women who
There,
were...
yeah, there are always black women.
There were a few.
Always, yeah, oh yeah, uh-huh.
But the attitude in Wolf was certainly very welcoming.
Yeah.
I remember that. So, but in your work with, you weren't aware of any of the problems that that the Roosevelt administration was having around race at that time. For instance,
No,
the CCC camps that were developed and how they were segregated really initially. You weren't aware of that.
well, I guess I was, but I was aware of other not just racial segregation, but there's other segregation. There's economic segregation. There's sexual identity segregation. So
You
it's
were
not
aware of
just
that then?
it's not just racial. There's all sorts of segregation. In other words, we're depriving ourselves of the
Association.
of contributions from people, but we're depriving ourselves
Right.
by segregating ourselves from groups, separating ourselves, whether it's economic separation or racial or sexual identity.
So, okay, so even in with all the upheaval during that time, you didn't feel that was talked about in the church in the restoration, or about how they were having trouble with the black people getting housing or anything like that. You never
Yeah,
heard-
it was.
or the,
Yeah.
Or the talks about the black soldiers or anything
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. It was
They-
mentioned.
It
Yeah,
was mentioned.
wasn't ignored. No,
It wasn't ignored.
no.
But you felt that you were on the right side of that issue, or?
Yeah, I felt I don't want to deny myself what people can contribute. Yeah.
So, When Martin Luther King came to
Oh,
USG, were you
yeah,
here?
yes,
You were here.
yes.
So tell me about that occasion. What was that like?
Well, I was very admiring of Martin Luther King, of course, yeah.
So when he came, you had discussions around
Yeah,
about race relations, and you
Yes.
participated,
Yeah,
so that you were kind of a leader in that area.
yeah. Well, I didn't want to cheat ourselves from people who could contribute to us, regardless of how they're separated from us.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you organized that morning discussion group, Coffee and Conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you go about organizing that, and just why did you?
Well, a friend of mine who was a black woman.
Betty Hankins.
Yeah, Betty Hankins.
Now, how did you and Betty establish your friendship?
Well, she was a college professor of creative speaking and writing. So she did the group. She managed it. But I got all the people.
Oh, you got the speakers.
I got all the speakers and tried to get people attending. So I did everything. So we worked together, and we've been friends and still are.
Right.
Very good friends ever since then.
Okay, but now that was a very important group because you talked about all kinds of issues.
Yes.
And certainly the racial issues were
Yes.
certainly very much discussed there.
Yes.
And I remember your being contributing a good deal to those discussions.
Yeah.
Why did you think that was important, and how do you feel that helped the church?
Well, I think the more informed we are about, let's try to be supportive and help everybody to develop to his or her full potential. Otherwise, we're cheating ourselves.
Okay, that was a very good thought about that. Betty, you but in the discussion groups, sometimes you would have some people who had different opinions about, at that time, race relations. How would you manage that?
So I'd ask questions. I would just ask a question, let them explain it.
So did you feel that helped the church to become that more welcoming by having that more, coffee and conversation? Sometimes you had, I remember some of the people who came, I know I met a woman there who was from the League of Women Voters. And, who came.
Oh.
And you had a good group. Sometimes you have a very good group, and you'd be discussing quite frankly some of the issues and whether or not the church was really welcoming.
Aware, yeah.
Aware. So in what ways do you feel that the church has become more aware of race relations?
I guess it has.
You think it has?
Yeah.
And
I don't think it was ever not aware, though. Yeah.
You don't?
No.
What do you think has contributed to the greater awareness?
I guess the obvious would be that Obama is president.
Well.
And we voted for him. And Michelle Obama.
Right.
And how we admire her.
Well, that's interesting that you say we voted for him.
And campaigned for him.
Well, okay. Now there was a lot of talk around that in 2008. Certainly about whether or not Obama should be president. Did you feel that the church was? I know that our.
And I knew that Michelle was Unitarian.
You did?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know she was.
Well, they don't want to advertise that. They don't want to be religiously prejudiced.
Right, because he goes to.
So they keep that quiet.
Yeah, they do keep it very quiet because they go to Quaker school. The kids go to Quaker school. Okay. Well, did you feel that the church was more or less ready to accept a black president?
Oh, yeah.
At that time.
Yeah.
You really did?
Yeah.
Well, we know that Kent was very much.
Uh-huh.
Our minister was.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking about the rest of the church. Did you feel
I can't imagine that it wouldn't be. Yes. Certainly restoration was, accepted, yeah.
But you were going here at that
Yeah,
time. You were definitely
yeah.
a member here. So, okay. So what would you like to say? How do you think that we are evolving as a church? Do you feel we're becoming stronger as far as our acceptance, our willingness to work with people of all colors and kinds? Or do you feel that we're becoming stronger in that area at this church?
We didn't need to be that much stronger. I mean, we were already, so, yeah.
Well, I'm not sure about that because they tell me there were times when there were ministers here who would speak to a certain people would come and say, I think you would be happier at another church because there aren't that many black people here. We don't.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Well, it happened. Some people you know very well experienced it.
I would have been shocked if I had known that.
Well,
Terrible.
So that there was an undercurrent of a wish not to be diverse. But you weren't aware of it?
No. I definitely was not. Huh.
Okay.
And I'm very active. I joined Johnson House. I'm one of the few white people who was a member of Johnson House, and I try to represent us and encourage people to join Johnson House, which is.
Well, why do you feel Johnson House was important?
Johnson House was a historical landmark.
And it was a way station for the Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
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 So therefore, but it's really run by the Quakers, but a lot of black people are.
No, it's not run by Quakers.
It's not?
No, it's not a Quaker place.
Oh, I thought it was.
No,
No, who runs it? Who manages it?
it's just a woman who's really in charge. Yeah,
They're an independent nonprofit now, I believe.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
All right. It's a nonprofit group. Okay, and I know you do go there. I've seen you there, and you do a lot of work with that group, and you still do a lot in your where you're living now. Where you're living now with the whole your peace movement. I know you do some work with that.
Yes, we need to cooperate with other peace organizations, and not feel as though everything depends on us. We need to cooperate with other peace and environmental organizations. My main focus is on peace, on nonviolence of every kind, on every level, and then it's cooperation, and then it's equality, and then it's care for the environment.
Right.
And I think right now most people are so concerned about their own health and their own wealth that they're not thinking about the environment, and it affects them both.
Generations.
Yeah.
Really.
Yes, future generations. Absolutely. So we are causing the global warming.
Okay, so I think what you've done with your life is that you've been always on the cutting edge of important issues.
And right now that's increased because when I was a young or when I was a middle-aged person, whatever I would do would have consequences. But now that I'm old, since if I live to be as long as any human being could, I'm still at the end of my life. So I don't need to worry about consequences.
Well, I don't know about that.
I'm not worried about consequences.
Well, there are things that you could do that are consequential.
Yeah.
Even at this age.
Yeah.
But I think you still have a lot to contribute with your attitude about the way you treat people.
Yes.
And the way you...
Yes. I want to treat people the way I want them to treat me. That's what I try to do, to treat them the way I want them to treat me.
And I think that you've expressed that through your race relations in this church and in the other organizations that I've seen you functioning.
And there's other prejudices here. There are prejudices against gay people too, gay and lesbian. Yeah.
So you've been really trying to be even-handed.
Yeah, uh-huh.
To say
Yeah,
that
there are
all
two
men
handsome men
are
here
equal.
who are very close with each other,
Uh-huh.
and each man prefers another man rather than me, but I still,
Well,
we got to be friends.
right, in this church,
Yeah,
I'm trying to just think who that is.
they don't attend very often.
Okay, all right. Well, but anyway,
And these gay men, they adopt orphan children.
oh yeah, there's one very handsome one who has 2 little children.
Yeah.
And the 2 little black children are very, very nice men.
Oh.
Okay, so what do you feel that we need to do in the church to make it even more welcoming than what it is today?
I think we need to reach out to other groups that agree with us. Well, I mentioned Johnson House, but reach out to the Quakers. I'm very, very supportive of Quakers. At Stapley, the first Sunday of every month, we have a Quaker meeting for the whole evening.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not a Quaker, but they allow me to join. So I join as a Unitarian, and they make an exception of me.
Well, you also have other groups there around issues, because you were telling me some of the things you were doing at Stapley's to
Yeah,
help them think about some of the issues.
Yeah.
For instance, this whole business of mass incarceration and what it has meant.
yeah, yeah.
And which is
Yeah.
which has been a very serious problem for black people. But you were not aware of that,
No,
were you?
yeah, yeah.
A lot of people really had no awareness of it. They just said, well, they were bad people and they were put in jail and they were smoking pot, or they didn't realize all the disparities.
Well, I think we're very, very fortunate to have a governor of Tom Wolfe. I'm very, very supportive of him. Very.
So you feel he's going to really take up some of these issues?
Yeah, and try to have people not going to prison who have committed
Minor offenses.
not even an offense, just,
Who were,
Yeah.
well, now he's going to try
Yeah.
not to send people who are, not to use drugs
Yes,
as a
yeah,
medical issue.
yeah,
Needing clinical care
Yeah.
rather than prison.
Yeah. So I
And of
think we're
course, not
very
put the
lucky to
mentally
have,
ill in jail.
we're very, very lucky to have him.
Right.
Very.
Okay. So, and you have been supportive of what we've been doing in ending racism in the committee. You've been working with us for years with that committee. So June, I think you're just one of the people that we really honor at USG.
Oh,
And thank you very much for talking about your experience.
well, I look at it as self-defense.
Okay.
Oh,
Is there
okay.
anything you'd like to say about your years at USG?
Well, I think that when we have all of the individuals and groups getting power in this country today, the right-wing people getting, including the Tea Party, we are even more important. We are even more challenged. We are going to have to work even harder. He didn't solve all the economic problems, and so Reagan was elected. Now we have Obama, and since he has not solved all of the economic problems, which of course it's not possible for him to do, I think we're going to have a very, very conservative, not for the people president.
Like Donald Trump, for instance? No, I'm really
I hope I'm wrong.
I'm really betting that we will have a female president, and her name will be Hillary. We'll
I'm
see.
not for Hillary. I think Hillary is for Hillary. I'm not for her.
Okay, so maybe you're a Sanders person. Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, let's not talk politics. Okay, but anyway, it's been a pleasure to interview you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much, Judy.
See you Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.